What is up, though, Lions fans? It's your boy, Motor City Down P. We're back here once again, and you already know what time it is. It is time to bust that rhyme. It's time to talk about that slime. It's time to do what we came here to do. We got a lot of stuff to get to today, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. But before we do that, it's important that you know that one thing is for certain and three things are for sure when you see me in front of your TV. Number one, the Motor City Cats are indeed back at it. Number two, we came to give you stats, none of that static. And number three, perhaps the most important number of them all, number three. Want to make sure you keep your Lions news pragmatic. And you may be asking yourself, how, Don? How, Mr. P, does one keep their Lions news pragmatic? Well, it's very simple. It's easy. I'll tell you. I don't keep the information from you. Smash the like button, subscribe, and share with your peoples. And once you've done these three things in any order you've done them in, you've indeed kept your Lions news pragmatic. And since we're talking about your peoples and sharing is caring, once you've shared this stream with your mothers, your brothers, your fathers, your sisters, your cousins, your uncles, your brothers, your fathers, your sisters, your mothers, your fathers, you name it, you have indeed cared about these people. Let's go ahead and get into what we got to get into. What up to everybody in the chat? What up to the people who are lurking and working and twerking and smirking? And if you're doing anything else, I don't want to know. If you're doing anything else, I don't want to know. And anybody who is here right now, anybody who will be here in the future, what up, though? We're going to go ahead and get into it, man. We got the Drew Petzing interview. It is disclaimer from Pride of Detroit. Eric Schlitt is cool. I don't really mess with Jeremy Reisman like that. But he's not as bad as Chris Perfett. And I don't think Chris Perfett is there anymore. I don't know. I wouldn't know because I don't watch their stuff. But this is a top-notch interview. They did ask Drew Petzing lots of questions. So we got some sound from different segments of the interview. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. I will tell you that there are some things that he said just on the surface level of him talking and saying things. I rock with some of the stuff that he said. Okay. I've been critical of the hire. I wanted Mike McDaniel. But I do think that it's important to point out that he's talking, right? He's talking. He's not on the field yet. Nobody's playing any games. No one's even in training camp. No one's in OTAs. No one's doing installs. No one's actually doing anything. He is just talking from his perspective, his philosophies, what he thinks should happen, what he thinks should not happen, things of this nature. There is one particular thing that he says, and we'll get to it when we hear it. But I love the fact that he said it. And I think more people should adapt this philosophy and this approach. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the Drew Petzing interview. So the first thing, let's see, that doesn't work. Okay. All right, we'll just go with this one. This one is a little bit sloppier, but we'll get into it. So we'll start off with what he said about David Montgomery. Let's do that.
Where you envision him in this offense and maybe any sort of decks a little bit, kind of primarily Dave Montgomery, because there's been a lot of questions about his future with the team. I know we've already spoken to him a little bit. Can you talk about where you envision him in this offense and maybe any sort of insight into conversations that you've had with David so far?
Yeah, and honestly, my conversation at this point were just introductory. And again, I'm going to let him speak and Dan speak on what that is or isn't. I was just told him I was extremely excited to be there. Obviously, watched him play in this offense for a number of years and think he brings a lot to the table. A lot like Gibbs, he's a dynamic back who can affect the game with the ball in his hands. He's really a three-down back. There's not a lot you're going to look at him and say he can't do this or he can't do that. So that's all I said. Hey, I'm excited to work with you. I can't wait to get you in the building. I know and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. And then, I'll let those guys talk on anything else kind of as it pertains to that. But again, he's a guy I'm excited to work with because of the nature of who he is, how he carries himself, and how he plays the game.
Really quick, I want to follow up because two running back sets have been like a very big topic in Detroit. You said, Dave Montgomery's a three-down back. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is too. You didn't run a ton of it in Arizona, and I imagine some of that is personnel, whatever. Is that something you envision could be a part of this offense?
I think you're always going to try to find ways to get your best players on the field. And, whether that's 25 times a game or 5 times a game, I think it has to be something you're considering, finding ways to do, finding ways to be creative in. I also know no one's going to play 100% of the snaps, or if they do, they're not going to 17 games, so it's a balance and a fine line. There's also times you got to find time to get them a break and get them a blow so that they can make it through a 4-month or 5-month NFL season. So it is kind of finding that balance. But yes, when you have two players of that dynamic ability, you want to find things that they can do together on the field because it puts stress on the defense.
Do y'all hear that? That is music to my ears. Now, you can go ahead and clip this because while I say that is music to my ears, I don't want to be sitting up here streaming games telling y'all that I haven't seen any 2-back sets this season. I don't want to be sitting up here streaming games telling y'all that I don't know why they can't get David Montgomery the ball because we heard all of this during the offseason. So I'm glad that this was addressed. Shout out to Jeremy Reisman, okay, for asking that follow-up question. Because y'all know, if y'all been here, you've been listening to me, you've been watching me, you've been following along with me, y'all know that during the Johnny Moe tenure, even the Ben Johnson tenure, Usama Ben Johnson, I was like, where the hell are the 2-back sets? Can we not have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery on the field at the same time? Is it that difficult to do? Is it that difficult? Now, Usama Ben Johnson was a much better offensive coordinator, so that was a smaller gripe that I had with him. But when Johnny Moe was here and Dan Campbell was calling the plays, it was a huge gripe because, David Montgomery went from getting 7, 8, 9, 10 carries a game to like 2 or 3. It was terrible. Now, I know that's a bit of an exaggeration. It wasn't 2 or 3. Sometimes it felt that way. Sometimes it felt like he never went in the game at all. But putting 2 backs on the field at the same time put stress on the defense. This is what this man just said. I've been telling y'all that for quite some time as well. It puts stress on the defense. Why does it put stress on the defense? How does it put stress on the defense? Well, because if you've got 2 dynamic backs in the backfield, and that was the point that he made, that he is dynamic, just like Jahmyr Gibbs is dynamic. He's a 3-down back, just like Jahmyr Gibbs is a 3-down back. There's not a whole lot that he can't do on the field, just like there's not a whole lot that Jahmyr Gibbs can do on the field, but they do have different skill sets, right? So they are different backs. While they may have some of the same verbal qualities, you can say the same things about them physically. They do different things, right? Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run hitter, but David Montgomery had a 75-yarder, right? Until Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that it was 77 that he had, or something, or 70. He may still be trailing David Montgomery with the biggest run since they've been together. But you know the David Montgomery, the famous one, the famous J-Mo run, when J-Mo was down there clearing folks out, blocking for him, talking about follow me, right? That's there. So the fact that he said it, shout out to you. Drew Petzkins, but I don't want to be here during the season asking you, where is all of that energy? Because I want you to keep the same energy. Where's all that energy that you have for the 2-back set? And you ain't used a damn bit of it, right? I don't want to do that during the season. So he said what he said. Hopefully he keeps his word and he sticks to his guns and he gets that done. All right. If you got if you've got anything in the chat, if you got any comments, any questions, you want to give your take about the interview, go ahead and get it in there, man. Yeah. So go ahead and comment below. You know, it always gets answered. Let me make sure to refresh this to make sure that we got everybody accounted for. All right. So the next thing that we're going to move on to, we're going to talk about his philosophy and building around available personnel. All right. Let's get to it. This was actually before the David Montgomery thing, but you know, I did the highlights the way that in the order that I wanted to talk about him.
Yeah, at the offensive coordinator, Drew Petzing is here. Drew, thanks for spending some time with us, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Really excited to get to know you. And let's just kind of start at the very basic. Like, what can you tell?
I didn't put new batteries in it. I just took the battery out. So it's been a long time since I heard that sound, so I didn't even know what it was for. But you know, shout out to y'all for letting me know.
Overall offensive philosophies, or there are specific tenets. What does the Drew Petzing offense look like?
Yeah, I think the key to any offense is got to be built around the players you have. You got to highlight their ability and what they do best. So that's going to be different game to game based on who's available. Every roster I've been on, it's going to be a little different. I've been very fortunate throughout my career to be around some great coaches who come from different backgrounds and different systems and have different beliefs. And I think I've taken a little bit, kind of from everybody in terms of how I want to build things and the language that I go off of and what I believe in. And then, I think at the end of the day, the game comes down to the fundamentals, right? You got to be able to block, catch, throw, tackle, run. I think that's got to be at the forefront of everything you do from an offensive perspective. So I wouldn't say it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It's going to be what we feel like we're best at and makes us hard to defend. And I think that has to evolve each and every week during this league.
All right. So, evolution. How will that evolution take place? Okay. Now, this is something that you like to hear, but again, we take it with a grain of salt because it is not time for the season. It is not time for OTAs. It's not time for training camp, right? Nobody's ramping up. Nobody's gearing up. Everybody is tamping down. Everybody's on vacation. Maybe they're, about to be coming back here in a bit, but it's not that part of the season yet. So we don't know what it's going to look like, but we do know what he said. And again, we're taking these things with a grain of salt, not to be pessimistic, but the fact that we had an offensive coordinator in here last season named Jonathan Morton III. Okay. It was terrible. He was trash, but he said a lot of the right things in the offseason. During this portion of the season, after being hired, he said a lot of the right things all the way up into the season, all the way up until training camp. He said a lot of the right things. And then what you heard from training camp was that the offense was getting their ass beat. So then you're like, oh man, defense is on 10, right? They own one. And then you go into the season and then you get embarrassed in Green Bay and you put up 6 points. The Isaac Tesla touchdown, I don't know if they went for 2, whatever happened. I think it was 6 points. It might have been 7. Okay. So yes, you do want to hear certain things about adaptability. You do want to hear certain things about evolution and it happening week to week. But is it going to happen from quarter to quarter? Is it going to happen from half to half? Is it going to happen from possession to possession? Right? Is Drew Petzing going to be able to say, this didn't work? And he talks about this later on in an interview. And I don't want to hear. I do want to hear, but I don't want to hear. You understand what I'm saying? I do want to hear you talking about evaluation, checking on what worked and what didn't work, because this is a week to week thing. But as I said, on the fly, what are your adjustments like? I don't personally know, so I can't say he's good at adjustments or he's not good at adjustments. I'm not sure. Okay. But what I do, what I don't want to hear is, oh, I love to self-scout this, that, because Johnny Mo said the same damn thing. Oh, I love to be in the lab. I'll be in the lab. Like, you know, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I go home at 3 o'clock in the morning just to fart in the doorway. And then I come back to the facility. I don't ever sleep. I'm always in the lab tinkering. But I can't figure out how to use Jameson Williams. I can't figure out how to get David Montgomery to football. But I'm always tinkering. I want to dictate to the defense, but the defense didn't do nothing but dictate to me the entire time. Oh, Brian Flores ate my lunch and I have nothing. I didn't have nothing prepared for him, brother. Oh, I don't want to hear that. Okay, so as I said, Johnny Mo kind of ruined it for whoever's coming next. So it's more of a show and prove than a speak and tell, right? It's more of a show and prove than a show and tell. That's what I'm getting at. So good to hear that adaptability and evolution and is something that he prides himself on. But let's make sure that we get some of that. Okay. All right. Zach J, exactly. Okay. Zach J says you don't want to hear about cleaning things up in week 16. Right. So anything that he talked about here today, anything he talked about, like I said, the 2-back set, I don't want to hear nothing about nothing during the season. I don't want to. I'm not gonna say week 1 because that's, you know, week 1. There's still a feeling out period. Week 1, right? There's still we can let this thing, as long as, you know, we don't come out week 1 and look like we did last year in week 1. As long as it looks promising, as long as the red flags are not there, the red flags that a lot of us ignored. I mean, week 1 was a big red flag. And I know for sure I was preaching patience and all this other stuff. But I think by week 5, I was over Johnny Morton. Okay. You know, I still tried to just get a chance, you know. Nah, we ain't doing no chances. What you're not gonna do is sit up here and do some chances. We're not gonna do that no more. But as long as we see something that is promising in week 1, we're probably we don't have the schedule yet. But you know, with our schedule being last place, week 1's probably not gonna be anything too dramatic. Okay, maybe I don't think they'll put us against the Packers or a divisional opponent again. I hope they don't put up against the Vikings week 1, because, I mean, that might be good, because you might, hey, Drew, you're going to have to learn real quick, because this Brian Flores fellow, he's not joking. He's a real deal. People that have to work that hard because they can't get it done in a normal day. These are facts. when I was teaching, bro, I would just come into the classroom and just give a lesson. It'd be phenomenal, right? It was something I was able to do. I didn't have to sit there and do all types of preparation. I actually didn't even like preparing because I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? I know what I'm going to do. So, no, those are facts. All right, let's get to the next part. It goes with the adaptability situation. And it's going to bleed into something else that I'm going to talk about. All right.
Your control with all the injuries, but your kernel stays a little bit just because, you know, when you get hired, everyone goes back and, okay, how did you do last year? And obviously it was a tough year in Arizona, right? There were some things out of your control with all the injuries, but I'm just kind of curious, what's your perspective on how last year went with the Cardinals and what did you learn about yourself?
Yeah, I think you heard, again, and it's going to, I guess it is an excuse to some extent, and you hate to make excuses. The injuries were a big part of it. I think, again, it was, everything was kind of trending in the right direction. I think at the end of the year, somebody told me, I think we played 11 receivers, 10 offensive linemen, 6 tight ends, and 7 running backs and 2 quarterbacks. That's not generally a recipe for success in the NFL, no matter what roster you're on. But I think in that process, and like anything you do, you learn a ton about yourself. You learn a ton about the game. We changed dramatically philosophy-wise in terms of what we felt we needed to do to be successful based on who we had available on game day. And I think, as a play caller, as a coordinator, as a coach, not that you want to be a part of a lot of those, but there's a lot of learning to be done when you are forced with a task like, hey, what we did no longer fits who we have. And it's week 6, and we got to figure out a way to score points and try to stay competitive. And we did. We had to pivot, and obviously became a little bit more pass-oriented because of who we had and what we needed to highlight. Felt like those were, to our earlier conversation, those were our best players. Those were the guys that we felt like had a chance to affect the game. And so we had to move that direction. And so it was a great learning experience. And, you got you're coaching some guys that haven't played a lot or haven't been there very long. And you're forced to get them up to speed and make sure things are hitting their brain and they're going out there and giving themselves a chance, which I do like to think we did. Obviously the results weren't always there, but I feel like we put those guys in position to have success individually and as an offense at times, which was great. And there are other times I learned, all right, I tried that. That wasn't the answer, and that's on me. Like, I got to be better there, and I can't do that again. And I think you're always going to find that as a coach, win or lose. Like, there's some things you do that you're thrilled about, and there's other things you're like, all right, that didn't work, and I was probably the reason it didn't. And then there's other times you're like, that shouldn't have worked, and somehow it did. Let's not do that. And then there's other times you're like, that was perfect. Why? That should have been a touchdown, and it's 4th and 10. Like, what's going on? I think that's all part of the game and the frustration of it, but it's also what makes it fun.
You want to move to the...
All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. What did he say? 7 wide receiver, 11 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, all this other stuff. Okay, cool. Before I forget, because this is going to be a broader topic. So before I forget, already you can understand one of the things that got him the job. And one of those things is accountability. Again, I'm trying to tell this man to keep the same energy. I need you to keep this same energy all season. Because what you're not going to do is sit up here and tell me that, hey, it's on you, and it's got to be on you, and you got to get better, and this, that, and the third thing, and then you going to turn into Johnny Moe and throw everybody and their mama under the bus. That's what you're not going to do, okay? You're not going to do that. So shout out to Drew, Grew, Petzing and Pretzel. Shout out, and Petskins and Pretzel. Shout out to saying, hey, it is about accountability. Sometimes you do something and it shouldn't have worked, but it did work. But you're not going to do that again because it wasn't supposed to work. Sometimes you do something and it didn't work, and you're a big part of why it didn't work. So then you got to be better. And it's about evaluation. I love that. Okay. But again, I want y'all to come back to this because it is about keeping the same energy. I don't want to be in the season. And you talking about, well, J-Mo he don't know how to get open. That's why we don't get him the ball. At the start of the snap, J-Mo was not 70 yards down the field. So it was impossible to throw him the football. J-Mo should have been coming out of the huddle, floating, and then he should have teleported into the end zone and then willed Jared Goff to throw a football, which he would then teleport in blips. J-Mo himself, making sure that it guides perfectly into his hands while he stands all the way down there alone by himself in the end zone, because that's the only way that we can get him the football. He's got to be in the end zone by himself with no coverage, because everyone has to have fallen down, which also J-Mo should do with his telepathy powers, make the entire defense fall on the turf, and he's wide open and nobody can stop him. Johnny Mo style. I don't want to hear none of that. Okay, so keep the same energy, please, Mr. Petzing. Now, this is a big thing that he was talking about. He said 3 quarterbacks, 11 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 11 wide receivers. I think it was more than 2 quarterbacks, because I don't know, somebody else got in the game. Okay, it was Jacoby Brissett, it was Kyler Murray, and that was largely, I don't know if Jacoby got hurt at all. But using the players that you have to their strengths. Oh, so awesome to hear. Again, we're taking this with a grain of salt. This is the offseason. No one is in pads. No one is at training camp. No one is even at OTAs. No one is even at organized or not organized team work activities, because that's what OTAs are. No one is even at workouts. People are on vacation. People are still in Cancun, right? Some people are traveling back. Some people are traveling elsewhere. How do you have, if this turns out to be true, how does that work? Because it is diametrically opposed to the philosophy of Dan Campbell and Kelvin Shepard. Let me explain. What do I mean by that? What are you saying, Don? The vet squad. Huh? You know where I'm going with this. What do? The vet squad? Oh, no, that's not a real thing. It's actually called the practice squad. And what do these people do? You mean professional practice players? Oh, well, they practice football professionally. That's what they do, because we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We're not talking about the game. We're not talking about the game where the people that we need to play aren't able to play because they're injured. So then we put these practice squad players in there and expect them to do the exact same thing that Kirby Joseph can do. The exact same thing that Brian Branch can do. The exact same thing that Aiden Hutchinson can do. The exact same thing that Jack Campbell can do, and so on and so forth and the like. This philosophy that he speaks of doesn't have anything to do with the vet squad, but it does have something to do with the vet squad. The reason is, on offense, fortunately, we haven't had the injuries that we've had on defense. On offense, he had those injuries last season that we had on defense every season. And he was still able to come out there and say, you got to play to the strengths of the players that you have. He said it's not an ideal situation to have all those injuries and you got 11 different receivers and 7 different this and 3 different that and 5 different this. It's not an ideal situation, but you got to go out and do what you can do with the players that you have. He did not sit up here and tell you that he's just going to, hey, man, if this guy gets injured, we're just going to put in the practice squad player who practices football professionally because he's a professional practice player. We're going to put him in and expect him to do the same thing. Jamar Jefferson is no longer on the team, but because Jonathan Vilma, shout out to him, you already know, who he is. Because Jonathan Vilma mixed up Jamar Jefferson and Jahmyr Gibbs, Drew Petzing's not going to do that. Right? He's not going to put Jamar Jefferson in the game for Jahmyr Gibbs and expect Jamar Jefferson to do exactly what Jahmyr Gibbs can do. It don't work that way. So if this guy's coming in the building and they knew this about him, Dan Campbell knew this about him before he hired him, is he going to be able to shoot a shot across the bow to the other side of the football and say, hey, man, maybe, listen, I'm going to make it do what it do, baby. Now, go ahead and play that G flat. Okay. Shout out if you know, use the hashtag. Is he going to be able to go over there and to Kelvin Shepherd and be like, I noticed your defense is ass because y'all got all them injuries. Maybe we carving y'all up. So maybe you might want to consider doing something a little bit different because these are professional practice players. They practice football professionally. Yeah, they're not your starters. So you're gonna have to simplify your scheme. You're gonna have to try to ask them to do things a little bit differently than what you would ask because Kirby's not out there. Yeah, Brian Branch ain't out there. I just want to know, is that going to be what's going to happen? The Pet Man, let us hope. Yes, let us hope. After hearing all the fluff last preseason, I'm in wait and see mode, hoping he won't be worse than no motion Morton, LOL. Exactly, and that's why I've said I'm keeping a grain of salt. I am not here to hype this man up. I'm going to tell you, I do like what I hear. But liking what I hear is not enough. You've got to show and prove. It's no longer show and tell. It's show and prove, right? You got to show and prove. Show and tell is over. Playtime is over. Johnny Moe effed that up for everybody. Everybody. Anybody coming in here, Johnny Moe effed that up. Because he had all the right things to say and did all the wrong things. What up, though, Smoke and Jeremy B? Appreciate you, Mr. Detroit City. Trade Melvin. I don't even know if there's ever been a GM that's been traded for. I don't even know if you can trade for a GM. I know you can trade for a coach. That is a thing. That's how Sean Payton got to the Denver Broncos. All right. Let's go on to the next tidbit. We got some Jared Goff stuff. I love this feature. Y'all don't know how I did this. I'm not going to share my secrets, but this is so clutch. The preparation game, so clutch.
Offense, it all starts with the quarterback. Let's talk about Jared Goff. Obviously, a little bit different of a quarterback than you've dealt with in the past few years. Veteran, pocket guy. What about his skill set excites you about building an offense around him? And what have those initial conversations with him been like so far?
He's been awesome. He's as impressive as a quarterback as I've seen watching tape. I think it's one of those things that, when you're not in the division, and we played him 2 years ago, but we didn't have a ton of overlap. It's like you see him, you watch a couple games on TV here and there, and you're like, oh, it seems like he's playing well. And then, coming into the interview process and watching the tape, I think you start to really appreciate how good he really is and what level he's been playing at these last couple of years. And I think as a play caller, as a coach, really at any position on offense, when you have a guy that sees the game the way he does, that can operate the way he does, the rhythm and the timing and the vision is really impressive. And then having the physical tools to then put the ball where it needs to be placed, to have touch, but also have some violence in his throwing motion. As you said, yes, he's a pocket passer, but he's made some great plays in the keeper game, on the move. There's just so many things that I think he does at a really high level that, again, it all goes back to what puts stress on a defense. And when you know a guy can see the field, check in and out of plays, get in and out of the huddle, like those are little things that I think get taken for granted at times that really make a massive difference in how an offense operates and the success of a team. And I think he's done that at such a high level for such a long time. You know, the one thing you said, obviously Kyler wasn't that, but Jacoby is a little bit more of that. He started 12 games for us this year. And when I coached Jacoby in the quarterback room in Cleveland for 11 games, and he started in 22. So I have been around some guys with similar skill sets now, and I love Jacoby. Jared probably a little bit more gifted and played at a little bit higher level. I know he wouldn't want me to say that, and Jared absolutely would, and he's right. But it's true. Like, it's absolutely true. And I think there's, like, at the end of the day, and I've always said this, at the end of the day in this league, at some point you're going to have to win the game from the pocket. Like, when you play great defense, they're not going to miss on the pass rush. And if they are, they're good enough to bring 5 or 6 guys to make sure they don't. And so I think that's true of any quarterback in this league. And I think he's done that so consistently. That's where you get, as a coach, you get really excited. And then just talking to him, his love of the game, his willingness to work at it and grind it out, and you know, be demanding of his teammates, but also allow me to be demanding of him, I think is really special. So just really excited to get to work with him.
Okay, so there were a few things there. First of all, the keeper game. What keeper game? QB keeper? Not Jared Goff. I'm sorry. He ain't making no plays in the keeper game. Okay. I'm sorry about that. That's not happening. The one thing that I think a lot of people didn't catch was what he said about the top tier defenses. They don't miss on the pass rush. And if they do, they're good enough to bring 5 or 6 guys to make sure that they don't. You're talking about Brian Flores. You're talking about Brian Flores and the Minnesota Viking defense. I know you're talking about the Seattle Seahawks. You're talking about the top tier defenses. There's something else in there that I didn't get in the highlights, but this just made me remember it. He was talking about how defenses are getting so good at being able to make the base and the nickel look different. They're able to make the front look different on the nickel. They're able to do all these adjustments, all these things, tinkering. Again, Kelvin Shepard should have been listening to this interview. Kelvin Shepard should have been listening to this interview, because if Kelvin Shepard doesn't take a major leap, and it's got to be major. I don't want anything incremental from Kelvin Shepard in that defense. It's got to be major. Because if you're going to keep playing this archaic scheme and think it's going to work, because it hasn't yet, not when it's mattered most. If you're going to keep playing it, you got to show me something. You got to show me why you keep playing it. You got to show me that it works. Because if you're not showing me that it works, what's the point? Why are we continuing to do it? So shout out to the Petzing man. Shep's D is better than AG's already. They're both not good. Listen, AG had a top 5 defense when we were not injured. Okay? Now here's the problem, Mr. Detroit City. Train stops with that. Here's the problem. He said Melvin is the only problem. The Shep's defense is not better than AG's defense. A reason why, I'm going to tell you why. The reason why, because both of them, they take these professional practice players on the vet squad and getting money. They're not really getting money. They're just out here making them do the same thing. That's the reason why that their defense both suck. All right. I don't know if that was my best Kevin Hart, but it was a Kevin Hart of some sort. And this is the thing. Once the injuries started to mount, Shep did the same thing that AG did. There were not many adjustments for the players that he had in available, the players that he had at his disposal. So At some point in the season, when both of them had healthy defenses, they were top 5, top 10 defenses at some point during the season. Okay? Once the injuries started to happen, again, we started all this bravado bull crap. Next man up, the vet squad, this, that, and the third thing. Well, it's got to be next man up, because what else can you do? You can't do anything else. If you don't have the guys because they're injured, then you got to put somebody else in there to do the job. But the job that you want them to do is the same job, but you have to arrive at the job getting done in a different way. You can't expect Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch doing a job to be the same as you can't expect Daniel Thomas and Thomas Harper to doing a job to be the same as the excellent workmanship and craftsmanship that you're going to get from Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. That's the point. So that's why both of them, AG got so much crap for being here with no one. That was mostly what AG got crap for, being here with no one. And then in the 15-2 season, which is why he got a head coaching job, he did come in here, and when everybody died on the defense, he was grabbing people off of the street and putting name tags on them. Hi, my name is Jamal Adams, and I just got off the couch, and I'm going to put you at linebacker. So he did try to make some adjustments there, and there were some things that he was able to do towards the tail end of the season to keep us 15-2. He was just able to do that. Shep got worse and worse as the season went on. He showed an inability to make adjustments when we had all the injuries. He showed the inability to adjust his scheme on the fly. He showed the inability to adjust his scheme at least even the next week. Sometimes it was like 2-3 weeks. You just keep trying to do the same thing, square peg, round hole, and then you finally adjustments have to be made. It's not acceptable. I'm angry at myself. Down in Atlanta, we don't play that. I'm from Decatur, shouted, right? No, it didn't work. So this is why I don't think that Shep's defense is too much better. I will say he uses spy, which is good, but he's gonna have to. We need to get away from the constant man coverage. We don't have the horses. We need to have more effective blitzing. We need to have better defensive line play. The scheme that we implore while we're taking Tyron Lacy. Now, this was Shep's idea. This is the thing. Tyron Lacy looked at him like he was crazy. I'm 300 pounds. What you mean play defensive end? What you mean come from the edge? This was Shep tinkering, thinking he had something. Putting Aleem McNeil out there at defensive end. This was Shep's decision. And it didn't work out. They were terrible choices. Tyus Lacy, terrible choice to play defensive end. He's a defensive tackle. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to change philosophy-wise with our defense. But we're here to talk about Drew Pretzel. Now let me see if this other part of the Jared Goff thing is here.
One of the things that was made known when Ben Johnson was here is that Ben and Goff sat down, kind of talked together for some time to talk about a scheme. How much do you lean on Jared Goff when talking about what type of scheme you're creating, and then I know you'll do it during the week, but just in an overall base ideas, how much do you lean on a quarterback in your implementation?
And that's a level that I think that has has to be that way with whoever the guy is. In this case, Jared is going to have the ball in his hand. He needs to know the whys. He needs to know the intricacies. He needs to have a voice. And he needs to speak up when he will do a great job of that, because I know him at this point a little bit. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like that. I want this. Do we think this is good? Like, hey, push me on this. And I'm going to. In a lot of ways, to me, a good quarterback play caller relationship, he's another coordinator on staff. He's another coach on staff, because of how much time is required to play that position at a high level, and how we don't do anything without the quarterback touching the ball. So everything we do has to be based around his skill set, making him comfortable, allowing him to see the game the way that he thinks he sees it best. And then I can do some things and involve some things. And hey, you haven't done this, but I think this is going to fit really well. Here's why. Here's how. Let's take a look at it. Are you seeing this the same way I do? Let's take a couple reps of it. Oh yeah, you're on it. Or all right. We got other ways to go. I think all of that is, kind of the ever-evolving offense that you guys will see on the field. But that relationship, that communication is as important as it.
All right. What up, the kneecap biting with Motor City? Listen, again, this is grain of salt time. This is not the season. This is not the training camp. This is not OTAs. This ain't even workouts at the facility. People are on vacation. People are in Cancun. People are doing what they're doing, spending time with their families. Nothing is on paper as far as what the players know. Obviously, he's sitting down and it goes on later to talk about Mike Kafka and things of this nature. Obviously, I didn't want to take the whole interview. I just wanted to take some highlights. I do think I have one more highlight from there, but having an ever evolving, he said this a couple of times now. If you're all about evolution, if you're all about innovation, if you're all about week to week, then this offense should never be stagnant. Brad Holmes has to address this offensive line. If you have a coordinator who keeps the same energy, okay? Because again, I'm talking about keeping the same energy. Johnny Mo effed it up for everybody. You can't come in here and talk to me. Talk to me nice. You can't come in here and talk to me nice and just expect me to go, oh, you know what I mean? Oh, Drew, this is so great. Drew. Oh, Petskins. Sorry, what Dan Orlovsky called him. But I'm willing to listen to this type of talk. I'm not going to let myself get excited about this type of talk because Johnny Mo effed it up for everybody. But being this collaborative with the guy who has the ball in his hands on every play, AKA Jared Goff, being able to say, hey, this, I think you could do well because of your skill set. This is a concept that you haven't dealt with already, but I think is going to help our offense go. Can you do it? Are you comfortable with it? And I'm pretty sure that Jared Goff will say, I'll give it a go. We do it in practice. If Jared Goff can get it by the end of practice, cool. We'll put it in the game plan. If not, we won't. Okay. You get Jared Goff protection. You get an ever evolving offense that's predicated on getting your playmakers the ball. Sometimes it's going to be J-Mo. Sometimes it's going to be Amon-Ra. Sometimes it's going to be Sam Laporta. Sometimes it's going to be Gibbs. Sometimes it's going to be Montgomery. We have an embarrassment of riches at the offensive weapon positions. What we do not have right now is an embarrassment of riches on the offensive line. Okay? So just talking about the offense, that's what we should be able to do. If Brad Holmes goes out there and does something this offseason to acquire talent, to acquire chemistry, and to acquire protection for one Jared Thomas Goff. All right. What up, though, Tactical Sport? Kneecap Biting says, I love that his system is based out of 12 and 13 personnel with heavy pre-snap motion. He's a run-first guy, but this year their RB room was as injured as a line secondary. Yep, we talked about that in the beginning. We mentioned that. For the Cardinals, yeah. We mentioned that in the beginning. For when he's with the Browns, when asked about how tight ends perform there. It's funny that we talked about David Njoku, I think the day before yesterday, not yesterday. Yeah, was it yesterday? No, it was the day before yesterday. Yesterday it was the technical difficulties show. But we talked about that. And he also, again, the 12 and 13 personnel, again, is about the personnel that he has. If he doesn't have that personnel, he's not going to run that offense. This is what the point was, him being hired. One of the things that Melvin said is that he likes the fact that he's not coming with a system. He's just coming with, hey, who do we have? What's our talent? Okay. We've got dynamic running backs. We've got dynamic wide receivers. We've got one dynamic tight end. Okay. I don't think anyone is going to mistake Brock Wright for being dynamic. Okay. So we've got these things going. How do we meld that into a cohesive unit so that we can play offense in the evolutionary style that I want to play it? He was saying the right things, but I got to see it on the field. Facts. That's what I've been saying this entire time. The energy, you got to keep that same energy. When he talked about, if you guys missed it, okay, we talked about David Montgomery. We talked about 2 back sets. You got to keep the same energy when it comes down to, hey, it's week 3. I don't want to be talking about the David Montgomery carries. It's week 10. I don't want to be talking about David Montgomery's carries. You told me that you had to find ways to get these guys the football, both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and you felt that having both of them on the field gave you an advantage over the defense. So when week 10 comes around, don't be telling me that, you wish that you could get David Montgomery. I don't want to hear nothing about that. You told me today. I want you to keep this same energy from today. Okay. We talked about all the injuries in Arizona and how he had to adapt to the guys that he had on the field. He played with 2 quarterbacks. He played with 11 wide receivers. He played with 7 tight ends. He played with this, that, and the third, and 7 running backs, and all these different people that had to shuffle in and out because of the injuries. And he talked about playing to everyone's strengths. So he didn't talk about the vet squad. He didn't talk about practice squad players who practice football professionally because they are professional practice players. We're talking about practice. He didn't say that. So again, the energy, you got to keep the same energy. Okay. It's at this point in time, it's foolish to believe that this team is going to be able to stay healthy. Unless they make some changes, this team just can't stay healthy for whatever reason. Okay, under Brad Campbell, they're the most injured team in the NFL. Brad Campbell. Yeah, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. It's like Brangelina. You know what I mean? So under Brad Campbell, they are the most injured team in the league for the entire time period of the regime. So for this last 5 years, they've been injured. Okay. So he didn't talk about that. He didn't say, vet squad, all that bull crap that Dan says. Okay. So yeah, everything is about keeping the same energy when the season starts. That's why I've been saying this is not the season. This ain't even training camp. This ain't OTAs. This ain't even, the workouts. People are in Cancun. People are traveling with their families. People are doing what they're doing because this is the off season. The draft hasn't happened yet. Hell, the damn combine hasn't happened yet, which is the next major event, which will be coming up here soon. But we just finished with the Super Bowl last week. This is the man talking. That's it. So before I get to your comments now, I want to get to mailbag. What's the rest of the song? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they reading you? Snick, 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 mailbag. Get your mailbag questions in. Get them in. Bask in it. I know Chicken Nugget from this channel. Oh, that's what's up. Chicken Nugget King, shout out. Well, Morton didn't come with a system either. Morton came in with a not changing anything, and I'm not going to change a damn thing. All I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what, brother. I'm going to tell you what, brother. I'm going to get that damn boy J-Mo the football, brother. I tell you that much. I'm going to get him the football. I don't know why I do the Johnny. It's just fun. It's fun. But I'm going to get him the damn football, brother. I'm not going to change a damn thing except for making this offense vertical offense. We're going to shoot that damn shot down the field, brother. He just got Southern energy, right? I'm just going to shoot that shot down the field at it. And boy, I'm going to have Jared Goff threading the needle like a needle smaller than the raccoon's balls. You know what I'm talking about? He's just going to be throwing that thing all across the yard. Now, speaking of that, this is the part that I forgot to mention when Drew Petzing was talking about Jared Goff's strengths, and he said a violent throwing motion. What the hell does that mean? He said he's got violence in his throwing motion. Bro, if my man had a cannon, maybe, but leave it to somebody like Artur to tell me that Jared Goff has the strongest arm in the National Football League. Josh Allen would like a word, sir. Damn, Trevor Lawrence would like a word too, because Trevor Lawrence can't stop. Trevor Lawrence is a violent thrower of the football. Matthew Stafford is a violent thrower of the football. Just ask Calvin Johnson. Okay, so yeah. May I run a hypothetical draft prospect at 17? Go ahead, put it in the mailbag. What if the great DEs and OT are off the board at 17? Would you be okay with drafting Vega Leon of PSU? I think he's the best guard in the draft. No question. Listen, if it's going to help the interior of this offensive line, which should be addressed already in free agency, we need to get a center in free agency. We need to know what Taylor Decker is doing when free agency starts. We may need to get another tackle in free agency. So yeah, I would not be opposed to getting that going. Us signing Petzing might be a little diabolical to Ben Johnson. Maybe at some point we're gonna have to let that go. We Osama Ben Johnson is over there in Chicago, and we've got to we brought in a guy that hopefully will be his own person. Because Johnny Moe definitely wasn't trying to be his own person, and he knew he wasn't trying to be his own person because his own person sucks as an offensive coordinator. That's why he got fired with the Jets. He was one of his best friends since they worked together at Boston. Yeah, we got. Yeah, I like to think of them as Danvin. That's crazy. Hell yeah, brother. J-Mo 2 TDs loading next week. In a flag football game. Hopefully Melvin gets traded or deported before this. Deported. Isn't he American? That's not what he means. He talks about how fast his arm goes forward and the way it torques from the elbow down. Okay, whatever that means for us. That's cool. All right, so if y'all don't have any mailbag questions, the Thursday shows are pretty tight to the time. So I can take one or two and then I have to go. But if you don't have any, then I'm gonna head on out anyway. All right. So mailbag going once. Mailbag going twice. Mailbag going thrice. Sold to the man with no mailbag questions. All right. All right. Will do. Once again, the Motor City Cats R&D back at it. We came to give you stats, not none of that static. Whatever you do, make sure you keep your lines news pragmatic. And we're out. Peace.